Journalist Jere Van Dyk was held by the Taliban for 45 days in 2008. He was captured while writing an extensive book about the group.
He was the second journalist taken captive by the Taliban. He sat down with CBSN to discuss his time in captivity, in his own words.
In 2008, a guide, two bodyguards, and I crossed the Afghan-Pakistani border up into what are called the tribal areas of Pakistan. We were hiking through the mountains. We left at about 10 in the morning. Towards sundown, came down into a valley, and I looked up and I saw a small piece of black move behind a rock. And I knew instinctively it wasn't a goat, it wasn't a sheep, it was a black turban. And a black turban meant the Taliban, and because the Taliban, like Muhammad, wear black turbans. And 10 seconds after that, a man rose up carrying a rifle, and about a dozen men came after him, running down the mountains, shouting at me, "Kenna, Kenna, get down, get down." And I knew I was dead. And they surrounded us. They, with their rifles, knocked down my two bodyguards. They came up to me. I tried to disguise myself. I had a beard and tried to talk to them. And of course, I couldn't do that. And then they took me up into the mountains. They blindfolded me, tied my hands, faced west, cocked the rifle, and I waited. And then they picked me up, took me back down into a valley, blindfolded now, into a car, drove for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't know if we went in circles, but I felt we were going north. And then we started to climb higher up in the mountains. They took me into a compound, and I took off my blindfold, and I looked for blood on the walls, and I saw a stake with chains next to it, next to the cot. And I knew I was in a Taliban prison deep in the mountains of Pakistan, and that no one could find me. I was held for 45 days. The first night, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I remember waking up the next morning, and it was the happiest day of my life because I was still alive. 4 days later, they came back late at night, and they sat me down on the floor, and the Taliban commander sat right in front of me, and he took out a small camera that I had, and he said, "How do I turn this on?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to help you film my own execution." Steve Sotlov and James Foley, they knew what was coming, and it takes tremendous courage, more courage than people can imagine, to stand there sit there with your back straight, knowing what's going to come next. A man behind me pulled the knife out. It's this long. They use it to slaughter sheep and water buffalo. And I saw a man over here holding a rifle. And I wondered at that moment, how would I rather die? With a knife or being shot across the chest? What you want to do the whole time is alleviate pain more than anything else. I remember one time I was sitting there, and a man said to me, "You know, we can do anything we want to you, and no one can stop us." When you're in a situation like that, all the power, all your sense of humanity, all your sense of strength is gone. You try to win them over without demeaning yourself, because by demeaning yourself, then they're going to lose respect for you. And the whole point is to try and do everything you can to maintain the respect, therefore to stay alive. And this is primal. Everything becomes primal. So you have to walk a very fine line with being honest to yourself and honest to them, because they knew or would know immediately when you're not. It was a jungle in which we live, in which there's really no one in authority. So there's this constant fear, and so of the outside, therefore, you draw closer to your captors, because they're the only people who can protect you. Every time a man would come in with our food, there'd be a crack in the door, and I'd see the light, and I'd say, okay, it's dark here, it's light, the sun is rising, and which way is east, which way is west? And I watched which way they prayed, which would be southwest towards Mecca. So if I left, if I could sneak out at night, then I'd know that west is that way towards Afghanistan. So you're always trying to figure out how to escape. Could I dig a tunnel? Could I get a spoon and dig a tunnel out? On the 45th day in the morning, the chief bodyguard, the tough guy, the chief jailer, the tough guy, said, tonight you're going to be with your wife in Jalalabad. And I had no idea what he meant or if he was lying, because by then I didn't believe much of anything that he said. And with the interpreter we began to walk, and we walked up into a mountain. And I was exhausted at first, and we had to wait for others, and we sat there. Finally, we came to a spot where a man came out from the darkness and handed me a small card, and it was a CBS bureau manager in Kabul. That's when my knees almost buckled, that maybe I'm going to survive. And then out of the darkness, two SUVs came with gunmen, and they put me in one, and we eventually made our way to the U.S. military base in Jalalabad.
Van Dyk is a CBS News consultant on Afghanistan, Pakistan, and al-Qaeda.